The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X Zone. It's a brand new week here in the X Zone. It is Monday, April the 3rd. And I must say, it's finally starting to warm up. You can actually feel spring in the air. And wow, what a welcome change from the doom and gloomy winter that we all went through. Tonight, we're being broadcast around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and the X Zone Broadcast Network, as well as on Simul TV, where the X Zone TV channel is broadcast 7/24, 365 on channel 32. Next week, we're going to be taking live calls from you, our listeners. We're going to be putting our the toll-free numbers up on all our websites. And we're also going to be changing the look of the X Zone. We're going to have a new intro. Well, not a new intro, the same intro with new graphics. And we're really excited because once again, here we grow thanks to you, the worldwide listening and viewing audience of the X Zone radio and TV show and all the other fine programming that we have on the X Zone Broadcast Network. If you'd like to visit us on any social media site, xzoneradiotv.com. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. And of course, we're being brought to you around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, and like I said, Simul TV. We're going to be talking to Stephen SAKEALLARIOS in a few moments about reincarnation. Now, Stephen is in Portland, Maine, and his website is reincarnationproof.com. And joining me now is Stephen SAKEALLARIOS. And Stephen, welcome back to the X Zone. How are you tonight?
Good to be with you again. I'm fine, thanks.
All righty. How did you... Well, first of all, tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, I had started, I mean, I was a materialist, up until about age 19, something like that. And I went through a total revolution and started studying Eastern mysticism, starting with the Bhagavad Gita and different scriptures and different teachings and so on. And I proceeded like that for many years and got a master's in counseling. And then I decided to do a documentary on reincarnation. I just had an idea to do a documentary. I'd started a little video production company of my own. I said, I've got to have some kind of project that's not commercial going at the same time so I don't lose my artistic sense. So I woke up one morning and I knew it was going to be on reincarnation, and I started looking into that. And I had no idea that there was research being done in the Western world. I only knew about Eastern philosophy. Right. And there's scientific research being done. There's people that had their own case and researched their own case. There's past life hypnotic regression. That was a whole new world to me. And I began to realize that there were certain cases that were really proved beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, I was, could see that this was logical stuff. And I mean, I already believed in it as a belief. So I did this documentary, and the idea was that I would show how people in America were encountering it, the different ways that people will run across it, the scientific research, the past life therapy, children telling their parents about past lives, Eastern teachers coming over to America. I kind of covered each one of those ways people might find it. And that was accepted by Films Media Group, which sells to universities. So, it got that far, and it got on one television station in Denver, Colorado, which is like more liberal than anywhere else here. And then 2 years later, I found a case of my own. And I said, well, I want to see if I can prove this to the same standard that I had seen the best cases proved with the same methods. And I didn't want to just stick to one method. There's a tendency to say, I'm in this school and I use this method and I use this method, and they don't even talk to each other, And I don't want anything to do with that. I want to use all of them. So I used a little bit of all of the methods that I had studied. And when I did the documentary, and I was able to prove it. But when I was excuse me, when I was delving into this thing, this is a writer from the 19th century, and nobody ever heard of him. His brother was famous, the poet John Greenleaf Whittier, but nobody had ever heard of this guy, Matthew. And where you find anything about him, he was like a hack writer. He was nobody, you know. Well, I found out he was really an excellent writer. He had a huge legacy, like 54 years in all different genres. And I also found that a lot of his stuff had been stolen and made a few other people famous, like outrageously famous. And I could prove that. You know, it took me 14 years to prove each of these plagiarism cases. And, you know, there's an ad, I don't know if it was for FedEx or UPS. There was an ad where the little company had been formed and they're standing around and they're looking at their numbers, and their numbers are going up.
Right.
They're thrilled and they're, you know, excited and they're jumping up and down. And then the numbers keep going up and they start getting kind of quiet. Like, how are we going to fulfill all these orders? You know? So it was
Right.
like that for me. I mean, my results got better and better and better. And I said, oh my God, nobody's going to believe this. So now here's the question. Do I back off on it and not tell everything I know? Or do I stick to my original commitment to be strictly honest about everything that I'm finding? So there's certain things about this guy that weren't so laudable. I mean, he was an alcoholic for a couple different periods in his life, especially later on. But he was the original author behind some really, really famous literature. Do I say that, or do I say that and destroy my credibility, or do I, you know, hide it? Well, I mean, I've been keeping strict honesty as a spiritual discipline for 50 years. You know, since I first started my spiritual search back at age 19. I'm not going to stop now, you know. So I just say it, and I say it over and over and over, and I'm accustomed to being, I don't know if I'm ridiculed because I'm not a fly on the wall. I'm not there, you know, but ignored, you know. I'm used to that. But I've got the evidence, and the longer this goes on that I'm ignored, the better the evidence got. I just got some more recently, you know, a huge treasure trove of this past life person's writing. And it's pretty strongly evidential stuff, you know. Question is, who do I tell? So finally, there's one religion professor who's in my court who's going to help me out, I think. So I won't name him here, but I finally got somebody in academia to pay attention. And that's because he had the same background I did with Eastern philosophy and so on. So see, we're on the same page with that. So since I could talk that language and had that background, he pretty much said, I think this guy's for real. Let's listen to what else he has to say.
Why do you think that people may not believe you? You know, if you've done the research is credible. Anything's possible.
They won't look at the research.
Why not? Why not?
Well, because it can't possibly be. And because it would blow them out of the water. So you've got, especially in academia, you've got people that have built their whole careers out of believing a certain thing, assuming a certain thing. And they've done their dissertation.
Yeah.
They've written books. They've gotten awards. They get called to speak at symposia, and they're like the president of an organization. If my research is right, all of that's gone.
But lately, academia has been proven to be wrong on several fronts.
On several fronts, yeah. Like, for example, I'm closely following the research that is being independently done about the ancient civilization that seems to have been blown to smithereens on Mars. There's some very compelling.
Sure, Dr. John Brandenburg is one of the biggest proponents of that from NASA.
Right. Yeah. Well,
and then you've got Michael Cremo, you've got Ralph Ellis, just to name a few. And
I have
then
a signed copy of Michael Cremo's book. It cost me like $26 because nobody believes him. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And then you've got the proof. One of the biggest proofs that I know that academia is wrong is the story about Christopher Columbus discovering the Americas. He didn't discover America. He was in the Caribbean, for goodness sake. So why not change and tell the truth? All this is doing is proving to the public that academia is full of crap.
They're losing their credibility.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But they don't want to lose their positions. They don't want to. Like I'm a part-time dishwasher. Okay. And they're like the head of a big organization. we're going to switch places if my research comes out.
Well, I'll tell you something. Jesus was a wandering philosopher, and he was spreading the word of God, and look what he did.
Yeah.
So whether you're a dishwasher, whether you're the president of IBM, or whether you're the chief scientist at NASA, if you're right, you're right. In my books, it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah, I've got the evidence. What literally happens is, well, like one or two of these professors would write me back. Maybe 3%. Everybody, I wrote to hundreds, and I got a few answers. And they would just kind of pat me on the head, and they would kind of dismiss me by saying, well, why don't you submit a paper to a journal, And I knew what would happen. I knew they'd all be rejected, but I spent a year doing that, 21 submissions, and they were all rejected. But it was kind of instructive in a way, because they literally wouldn't look at the evidence. They didn't actually read the papers.
But the statistics are, for example, if company ABC sends out 100,000 emails promoting and presenting their new product, less than 0.032% of those emails will even be looked at.
Right. So it was something like that.
Yeah. So, you've got to keep going. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep going.
Well, what I found is that I can leave comments. Well, first off, there's something called Academia EDU, and that allows laymen and independent researchers to post papers where academicians can see them. See, so there's a breach in the wall, with this Academia EDU. It's like as big as like WikiLeaks or something, in this world.
Yeah.
So I can post my papers there, but then I can go to YouTube and find YouTube videos on the topic and leave my comments and links to the papers. See, so people that are interested in the topic look at the video, they look at the comments, they see my comment, which is outrageous. They see my link to the paper, they go to the paper. So the papers are being read like by the hundreds on Academia EDU, but nobody dares talk to me. Nobody messages me.
That makes no sense. Hey, listen, you and I have to take our first break. X-Zone Nation, our guest this hour is Stephen SAKEALLARIOS. Did I say it right? SAKEALLARIOS. And the website is reincarnationproof.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Question: what is the name of the unique blend of coffee you get that has been formulated by a neurologist, a neurobiologist, and a pharmaceutical chemist? Answer: you get Beautiful Mind Coffee, a unique coffee blend that tastes great and has herbal ingredients that your brain will love, and it is not just coffee, it's brainalicious. Dr. Rathbone, Dr. Jang, and Dr. Winslow, the scientific team that created Beautiful Mind Coffee, decided to collaborate on a coffee focusing on brain health. As for those herbal ingredients found in Beautiful Mind Coffee, Dr. Rathbone, Dr. Jang, and Dr. Winslow, utilizing their combined extensive scientific research background, worked with many natural and herbal products until the exact formulation that is found in Beautiful Mind Coffee was created. With a unique scientific formula not found in any other coffee being sold or served, Beautiful Mind Coffee is the only coffee blend that contains 3 herbal ingredients found to aid in boosting your daily mental clarity and focus. Every cup of Beautiful Mind Coffee contains scientifically formulated amounts of maca root powder, green tea extract, and American ginseng, all supporting good brain health. Taking care of your brain's health now can help delay or prevent the onset of cognitive dysfunction, including dementia, Alzheimer's, and more general memory loss as you get older, just by enjoying the delicious flavor of our roasted coffee and herbal ingredients found exclusively in Beautiful Mind Coffee. Did you know that cognitive dysfunction also refers to deficits in attention, verbal and non-verbal learning, short-term and working memory, visual and auditory processing, problem-solving, processing speed, and motor functioning? For more on Beautiful Mind Coffee, the 3 scientists who formulated Beautiful Mind Coffee, and more details on the 3 unique herbal ingredients in Beautiful Mind Coffee, visit www.beautifulmindcoffee.ca. Beautiful Mind Coffee is now available online at amazon.ca and amazon.com. To order Beautiful Mind Coffee, visit www.beautifulmindcoffee.ca today.
Stephen SAKEALLARIOS is our special guest this hour. His website is reincarnationproof.com. Stephen, the research that you did, how was it conducted?
Well, first of all, the gold standard for proving a reincarnation, we're talking about there's two separate categories. There's the reincarnation case and then there's the literary legacy. So talking about the reincarnation case, I wanted to document memories or impressions. That could be emotional impressions, it could be cognitive memories, it could be recognition of something. I wanted to document those things before I had any possible normal way of having the information. So if I had some memory or some impression or some emotional reaction to some new information about my past life person, I would document it. And in that particular case, when I started, I was working with a volunteer researcher, so I'd send her the email. So the emails become the documented, information. And then I would go try to find it in what I call the deep historical record. And in this particular case, this person was so unknown. His legacy was so hidden. He hid it himself, and then he was ignored. So between the two,
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but are you talking about your own personal case on how you did the research?
I'm talking about my own personal case now.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay,
because
so-
I was getting at, how did you conduct the research on the other people?
Oh,
that
on the
the
documentary
case-
you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, the documentary, that work was already done by somebody else. Like, for example, Dr. Peter Ramster in Australia or Dr. Ian Stevenson,
I see. So the only research you actually did was on your own case.
Right, that's correct. The
Okay.
others was research other people's research that I studied and presented
Okay.
in the documentary.
I
That's
understand
right.
now. Thank you.
Yeah. So again, the gold standard, even with Dr. Stevenson's cases where he studied children who had very detailed memories of past lives, what he wanted was statements by the parents or by the children, and then the parents maybe have written it down, ideally. And there was no way for that child to know that information. And then they go check it out and they find out it was correct. In other words, the child remembers being, such and such a child in another village that they'd never been to. And they go there and he shows them exactly where the place was. And he names, the past life family members. And he says that there was, my name was scratched on the back of the door. And they go and there's his name scratched on the back of the door, that kind of thing. So the question was, could I do that? Well, I did. And in a handful of cases, beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, I used hypnosis, and it was also spontaneous memories, both types. And I didn't have a lot of them that could be proved, but there were a few. It was enough to show that it was a real case.
Now, you said a handful of cases, plural.
I meant a handful of memories, a handful of instances is what I meant in my
For
case.
for your case.
Yeah.
All right. How did you decide that you actually had a past life and that this was what you were going to do, that you were going to investigate your own past life?
Well,
what was the catalyst? How?
Yeah, I just stumbled on it. I mean, I'd done the documentary. I studied the research. I knew how it was done.
Right.
And actually, it's kind of a long story. I'll try to shorten it. Many years ago, I'd had a past life psychic reading, and she'd said that I'd been a woman on the West Coast of the United States, writing serials, stories that came out like once a week.
Yeah.
And that I'd had some success with that. And it sounded like it was in the 1930s, something like that. And I did have one or two memories. I can't prove it. I can't prove that case. but I would look for it every once in a while. And what I was looking for was female writers. It sounded a little bit familiar. The name sounded familiar. And I finally found one that did. And that led me to this 19th century man, because he knew her. They were friends. So basically, I found the website for this woman whose name I recognize, Sarah Orne Jewett. She's known here in New England, but she's not known down in like Atlanta where I was, So I found this website and I felt like it was familiar. I didn't think I was that person, but I said, I know this, I know this lady, I know this writing, I know something about this. So I asked a friend of mine named Jeff Keane, who has his own case and was in my documentary. He's kind of psychic in a weird sort of way. There were a lot of synchronicities that happened when I met him and filmed him. So I said, I bet he can find this. So I emailed him and he emailed back with a page, and it was the page to this person, Matthew Franklin Whittier, who looks basically exactly like me. When I saw that, I didn't even pick up so much on how much it looked like me. I looked into the eyes and I really had a strong sense of recognition. I said, that's me. I'm looking at myself, like looking in the mirror. I said, that is me. So that's how it got started. And then I said, well, I wonder if I could prove that.
Did anybody that you show the picture to also see the resemblance?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you can edit that in, but yeah, it's about 95%. It's very, very high similarity. And Jeff Keane has the same thing with his past life. Looks about 95%.
So other than it being a very unique and fascinating story, what does that give you in today's life?
Well, first of all, his legacy was stolen from him and his wife's as well.
Okay.
And I feel a very strong urge to set that right. Before I die, I want it understood that this was his body of work, to bring it out. So I spent a lot of time finding it, verifying it, typing it all up, organizing it and packaging it in such a way that with any luck, I can pass it on, before I die. So I want to repair that mistake because he hid himself, he wrote everything anonymously. When people would steal from him, he wouldn't come out and defend it for various reasons. And so he kind of participated in that. And I think he felt that it was a virtuous thing to do, to keep from getting a big head by getting famous. He didn't want to get famous. But what he did was he became a patsy basically for a whole bunch of people to rip him off. And I feel like I've incarnated partly to set that right. But then that's just one side of it. Beyond that, I mean, for society, there's a whole bunch of implications in terms of if we understand that we are spiritual beings, temporarily inhabiting a series of physical bodies, it changes the whole way you look at life and the whole way you live life. So there's that side of it. I want to help, I mean, I'm a light worker like a lot of people, and that's my own little area. And I want to help push that particular concept forward. So there's that side of it. For myself personally, I don't know. It's a hard thing to explain. I mean, it's a two-edged sword because if I delve into his life, he was a very unhappy person and for much of his life, especially after he lost his true love pretty early in life, his first wife, and had two more disastrous marriages, and eventually started drinking toward the end of his life and got stuck in a dead-end job. And so a lot of that will come to me, those feelings will come up, and I'll start to feel kind of swamped and hopeless. And, so it's a two-edged sword, but on the other hand, he was a philosopher and he wrote an awful lot of material about his philosophy and his observations. So in a sense, I have the intellectual power or the wisdom of two lifetimes combined. It's very difficult to explain that, but I have his insights and my insights, and pretty much they're the same, but I kind of can come at life from two angles. Does that make any sense? It's hard to express.
No, it does. It does make sense. So
Like
how are you?
engines.
Yeah. So how are you using this added knowledge from the past and the present?
Well, I mean, I can, first of all, I can benefit from my mistakes and I can learn from his mistakes. So there's certain things that maybe I haven't faced in this life, but I
Right.
know he did, and I know, what he would have liked to have done different. And so I can, I can benefit from 2 lifetimes worth of mistakes, which is pretty valuable. But I'm pretty good at a debate. So right now I'm being ignored. But if any of these scholars choose to engage me, they will find me a tough customer. And somebody did that pretty recently with regard to one of these plagiarists. These people have fans. And so the fan will naturally defend their hero, and I don't blame them in the slightest. But, he would bring up something, and I already knew that because I'd studied pretty deeply. See, Matthew studied debate. He was a debater. He had, trained as a debater. So I've got that. I have that ability, and it's fairly easy to wake that up. And his writing ability, I have that also, which means that I can churn out blogs and I can write papers, and so I can draw on his skills. See?
But how has this knowledge enriched your life?
Well, for that you'd have to go to the writing itself, because it's some beautiful writing. So I mean, I'm enriched by having absorbed all of this work and been exposed to all of this work, as well as his ideals, which are really my ideals. I mean, I'm the same person on that level of ideals and values and attitudes and worldview. I really haven't changed. There's one or two things that I would differ in my opinion on, but basically I'm the same person at that level. But it just amplifies. I mean, when you know where you came from, it's empowering.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if you have all this knowledge of your past life and you're incorporating it into your present life, are you using that knowledge to enrich your life, not only in a spiritual way, but monetarily as well?
Well, monetarily, it's cost me. It hasn't made me a dime. Whether that will change or not, I don't know. It's too big. It's like the elephant. The elephant doesn't fit in the room. It's too big. My results.
Well, if the elephant doesn't fit in the room, you take the elephant to a room where he does fit.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's, in a sense, that's what I've done with this academic who's hopefully going to help me out. I went to somebody that would understand it, as the background. But I don't quite know how to answer the question. I mean, you'd have to see this legacy. It's a beautiful thing, and I've got a physical collection as well, a very large physical collection of antiquarian copies. So what I hope is that someday I'll be able to create a museum, or at least have a corner in somebody's museum. But I'd like to really have a museum dedicated to these two people, where people can come and look at the research and look at the few little artifacts that I got and appreciate it. So,
I understand that, and I appreciate where you're coming from, but why would this have any effect on anybody else's life?
Well, I mean,
especially when you say you want a museum.
Well, first off, there's just proving reincarnation. That's one thing. But again, you have to see how beautiful this work is. I can't answer your question unless you understood just how good this work is. I can tell you I can go to the people that it made famous. Matthew Franklin Whittier is the fellow's name. His wife's name was Abby Poyen Whittier. They were the original authors of A Christmas Carol. It was not Charles Dickens. Okay, Matthew, after she died, he wrote The Raven, the poem that people think was written by Edgar Allan Poe. That was
and we know this how?
I can prove this. I can prove
how?
It. You just have to, because you have to look at my evidence. I mean, I've got a 59-page paper on The Raven.
All right, but how can you prove that Charles Dickens didn't write A Christmas Carol?
Well, I mean, I can't tell you in 5 seconds. It would take me 3 hours to tell you that. First of all, you can look at Charles Dickens and you can debunk him completely. Okay, if you look deeply enough into Charles Dickens' life, he was a phony and a sociopath. That was not a nice guy. And this is already coming out now. That's not my work. There's a fellow named Professor John Bowen, who, for example, he was like an archivist. And what he found, he's honest, apparently.
Mhm.
He's an English professor, but also an archivist. And he wasn't like a Dickens fan, see, because if a Dickens fan had found this, he would have buried it. But this guy is too honest and he came out with it. What he found was letters between a couple reporters. One of them was good friends with Charles Dickens' wife after they divorced.
Mhm.
And what he found was that she told this reporter privately that Dickens had tried to have her committed to an insane asylum, even though he knew she wasn't insane, to get her out of the way, basically, so he could have his go on with his affair. But he tried to have her put it into an insane asylum.
Mhm.
You know, it's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle, but pretty nasty character. See,
All right, we've got to take our break. Please stand by. And Exonation, I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue talking about reincarnation. Is it fact, fiction, or something in between? We'll be back. Don't go away. Da, 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 da. Welcome back, everyone. Stephen SAKEALLARIOS is our special guest. We're talking about reincarnation. And if you'd like to find out more about Stephen, visit his website. Let me see. Reincarnationproof.com. Stephen, what is the biggest drawback when somebody wants to go forward with their own case of reincarnation? You know, if reincarnation is real, and I'm not saying it's not, please don't take me wrong, but if people believe that reincarnation is not real, should it matter to them?
well, I mean, somehow people have got to get past the idea that they're their physical body. And there's a lot of avenues to that. We've got psychic mediums, we've got near-death experiences, we've got out-of-body experiences, we have near-death visitations. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues, and reincarnation is one of them. Reincarnation really just means the whole cycle of life. It means that you stop thinking of life as a track, as a linear thing that with a beginning and an end, and you start looking at it as cyclical, which everything in the universe is cyclical. Everything is pulses, you know. So human life is no different. Human life is a cycle like everything else. And, it's a matter of manifesting in the physical world and then leaving it, learning something and leaving it and coming back. And there's this continual cycle. So it's a really much more rational view of life than the idea that there's a beginning, and an end. And it's just like the life course. So that in itself is a huge step if people can make that jump.
How would that affect society in a positive manner?
Well, I mean, at first it would probably it would wreak havoc with the economy, first of all, because if people in large groups, if they stop wanting to accumulate things, like the guys with the most toys wins, if that falls out of favor and people start embracing more spiritual values, then I imagine that the economy would fall apart. For example, I mean, I don't buy very much. If I go to the store, I just buy a few basic staples mostly. Once in a while,
Yeah.
I'll buy a treat, but 98% of the store I ignore. If everybody did that, the place would go out of business, inside of 3 or 4 weeks. I
Right.
think it's based on the religion of consumerism, where you have, 20 brands of soap and 20 brands of this and things that, somehow or other people have convinced you that you need, that you really don't need. And, there's this
Well,
vast.
what the store is doing this exact same thing that you're doing. Basically, you've got a product that you're trying to sell. So how can you condemn a store from trying to make money and trying to, sell a product that
Well, I
they
don't
need?
condemn them, but I'm saying that if people had a spiritual outlook on life where they believe that they are a spiritual being coming into a physical body to have experiences and learn things and then
Yeah.
leave, that the store would go out of business because there wouldn't be demand for that many different products.
Well, what about all the different brands of religion out there? You know,
Well, what about them?
what you're offering is just another slice of another religion or philosophy.
Well, it's no, it's not. It's another avenue into something. It's a way to get into something, and there's a lot of different ways to get into it. But it's
Right.
not a thing hanging out here by itself. It's a conduit into something more substantial.
Just like religion.
Well, religion can be.
Yeah.
Now, I met at a retreat a yogi named Hari Das, and
Mhm.
one of the things he said was, uh, he said, the religion of your upbringing is like a cloak. You have to know how it's made in order to take it off. Meaning that if you want to get deeper into spirituality, at some point,
Mhm.
you will probably have to take off the religion that you were born into and go into the esoteric side. And when I started studying spirituality, I started studying the religions with the assumption that the esoteric side was the same in all of them. In other
Mhm.
words, that when Jesus spoke to his intimate disciples about the deeper spirituality, he said the same things that Buddha was saying to his disciples, the same things that Krishna said to his intimate disciples. It's the religion. Religion is a museum that's built up around the memory of a sage, a world teacher.
Right.
And it's nice to walk around in a museum, but I'd much rather meet the actual guy, than see his museum. So at some point you outgrow the museum. religions in a sense are like training wheels, and at some point you've got to take them off and start.
Well, yeah.
Right.
If a person wants to believe in the esoteric, I agree. But there are more people who believe in Christianity, Catholicism, and all the other religions that are established than they do in the esoteric. And if the esoteric was so real, why wouldn't they believe in the esoteric instead of the religious philosophy that they believe in?
I haven't had enough lifetimes.
Or they don't believe it.
Yeah,
It's a
they don't
matter. It's
believe
a
it
matter.
because they
It's a
haven't
matter of
had it.
belief.
There is a story, and this is kind of apocryphal for me because I don't have the citation. But as I remember the story, the Buddha is sitting with 4 men are sitting around him, and
Mhm.
he's expounding the teachings. And one of them is fallen asleep. And one of them is looking around at something that's going on over here. and one of them is drawing some kind of something in the dirt with a stick, and one of them is paying rapt attention. So after this is all finished, they asked Buddha, why is this? Why is the one guy paying close attention to everybody else? He says, because in past lives, he had studied Vedanta. He had the background. And the other people couldn't understand it because they didn't have the background.
Or they were just bored.
Well, they were bored, but they weren't just bored.
You and I have to take our final break. Please stand by. Exonation, www.reincarnationproof.com is Stephen's website. We'll be back as we wrap up this edition, this segment of tonight's show here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Stephen SAKEALLARIOS is our guest, reincarnationproof.com. How can someone find out if they have had a past life and that maybe they want to investigate the possibility that after hearing you tonight, reincarnation is real?
Well, of course, there's past life regression, which generally isn't free. Not everybody could afford the $80 an hour or whatever it is, but there is that.
Mm-hmm.
There are some cautions about that. You want to get somebody that knows what they're doing. You don't want to get somebody that, if you get into some heavy material, will freak out and try to bring you out of it instantly and leave you. So there's that. Of course, there's study. I mean, like I did when I was younger, you can study reincarnation, try to get the best sources that you can and read everything you can about it, because everybody's had a great number of past lives. So you can start with the assumption, that you've had them. You can pay attention. You can look at your interests and your proclivities and your dislikes and your fears. Basically, anytime somebody says, or in my case, I always liked chocolate ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
I always loved fresh air. I've always loved the mountains. I've always loved the sea. Whenever that kind of statement comes up, that's probably a past life influence. When you say that, when you feel that about something. There's also relationships. Many people have had the experience. They've just suddenly met somebody and it's like, man, I know you. You
Mm-hmm.
suddenly, finishing each other's sentences and you're just, right in tune with the person, and it's just instant, like you have this instant rapport. That's also reincarnation. So there's a lot of different avenues. Again, a lot of different avenues to get into it.
Stephen, what are your final thoughts for our X Zone Nation tonight?
Well, I mean, there's certainly the societal side and the spiritual side, and I would encourage people to study it. Just be open-minded and study it, because the evidence is there. There's skeptics who will say, oh, there's no evidence, and they're just in denial. It's just nonsense. There's a ton of evidence. It's basically been proved beyond a reasonable doubt. You can read the work of Dr. Ian Stevenson. It's a done deal. Reincarnation is real. as far as my case is concerned,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I want people to begin to take seriously what I'm saying about what I've discovered and look into it. Actually look at the evidence. Take the time to look at the evidence.
All right, Stephen, thanks very much for joining us. And Exonation, if you'd like to get more information about Stephen, visit his website at reincarnationproof.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break at the top of the hour as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. Whatever you do, don't go away.
Question: what is the name of the unique blend of coffee you get that has been formulated by a neurologist, a neurobiologist, and a pharmaceutical chemist? Answer: you get Beautiful Mind Coffee, a unique coffee blend that tastes great and has herbal ingredients that your brain will love, and it is not just coffee, it's brainalicious. Dr. Rathbone, Dr. Jang, and Dr. Winslow, the scientific team that created Beautiful Mind Coffee, decided to collaborate on a coffee focusing on brain health. As for those herbal ingredients found in Beautiful Mind Coffee, Dr. Rathbone, Dr. Jang, and Dr. Winslow, utilizing their combined extensive scientific research background, worked with many natural and herbal products until the exact formulation that is found in Beautiful Mind Coffee was created. With a unique scientific formula not found in any other coffee being sold or served, Beautiful Mind Coffee is the only coffee blend that contains 3 herbal ingredients found to aid in boosting your daily mental clarity and focus. Every cup of Beautiful Mind Coffee contains scientifically formulated amounts of maca root powder, green tea extract, and American ginseng, all supporting good brain health. Taking care of your brain's health now can help delay or prevent the onset of cognitive dysfunction, including dementia, Alzheimer's, and more general memory loss as you get older, just by enjoying the delicious flavor of our roasted coffee and herbal ingredients found exclusively in Beautiful Mind Coffee. Did you know that cognitive dysfunction also refers to deficits in attention, verbal and non-verbal learning, short-term and working memory, visual and auditory processing, problem-solving, processing speed, and motor functioning? For more on Beautiful Mind Coffee, the 3 scientists who formulated Beautiful Mind Coffee, and more details on the 3 unique herbal ingredients in Beautiful Mind Coffee, visit www.beautifulmindcoffee.ca. Beautiful Mind Coffee is now available online at amazon.ca and amazon.com. To order Beautiful Mind Coffee, visit www.beautifulmindcoffee.ca today.